360, Hal.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. There was a debate this week. I don't know if in the bum rush of news that goes on. And by the way, Johnny Million is not with us this week. He will be back next week. For those of you that have been asking, we miss him sorely, but he's handling house and family things, and as we all are. But in the bum rush of news that we are constantly dealing with, I think the president's tweets alone, both, I was about to say serve as, but that's actually, quite frankly, what he actually does with them. I think what we saw in the debate was a live reading of, or a live performance of, Donald Trump tweeting. Effectively, that's what the entire purpose of the debate was to confront Joe Biden in person with things that he tweets. Now, the president, in the last 2 weeks, the president of the United States has tweeted in the last couple of weeks multiple times that the reason we have more cases of COVID in the country is because of all the testing we do, which of course is absurd because you find cases that exist through testing. You do not create cases by testing. And this person who thinks, the president of the United States, who thinks that by finding more cases, you create more cases, and therefore if you stop looking, you wouldn't be there, as if, I don't know if his parents sat him down and said, Donald, it's time we talk to you about the birds and the bees. And quite frankly, are there any questions you have? Where do babies come from? From pregnancy tests. Meanwhile, while he thinks that the tests are causing the number of cases instead of making us aware of the actual spread of the disease. And again, if this was a situation where the disease was like Ebola, for example, where the person has to be blatantly symptomatic and bleeding physically in your presence, and get a visible volume of that on them. If that's why, if that's how you caught this disease, then the asymptomatic spread or the broad spread of the disease through the rest of society wouldn't matter as much. Tracking and tracing is awfully easy in that circumstance. But with a disease like this, it is incredibly important that you test because you do not know in the 80-20% percentage race of this disease who, when they get the disease, will fall into the 80% mild or asymptomatic and or into the 20% of falling very ill, needing medical assistance to survive, or ultimately dying. That 20%, of that 20%, 85% of the people in there will require medical intervention to the level of an ICU, and 15% will die in short order. That's an extraordinary death rate compared to the flu, which in the same kind of math, you're talking about 1% of that 20% in full. Now, I'm sorry, I know I'm going to be confusing Trump if he's listening. So if you want to rewind that and have someone write it out in Adderall for you, you can. The other part of it, while the president of the United States has been tweeting that we have too many cases because we look too hard and we test too much, and that the tests don't find the cases, they create the cases. This ongoing refrain that he seems to have a hard time grasping with, which his staff clearly yells at him about. His staff has brought it up to him, and he ventures in all of his rallies, which everyone here knows I have seen all of. He ventures into understanding the finding part, and then he zaps back to created because that's where his brain really, that's his, as Michael Pence would call it, his lodestar. Now, meanwhile, while he thinks that testing doesn't find cases, it creates cases, he also thinks that people going back to work after losing their job creates jobs. The president, and this is totally consistent. This is not only him misunderstanding the case versus finding versus creating equation in COVID. This grown man not only believes that 30 million people lose their jobs, 11 million people go back to work, he should get credit for not just getting those people back to work, which is what, as a politician, you would use as leverage, and you'd go, hey, we're getting a third of them back already. Instead of saying that, what he says is, we have created, he uses this repeatedly. He said it in the debate. He says it in every single round. Created 11 million jobs. Meaning that if you take the man at his word, the only way he will be able to achieve the growth that he projects in his administration over the next 4 years is to have 3 more pandemics. Because according to him, having a pandemic and losing 200,000 plus people and everyone sheltering in place is the very thing that gives him credit for the, quote, creation of 11 million jobs. Before COVID hit us, and before we had a lockdown, and before it ramped up, and we really got a real grip on how awful it was, the nation entered a recession in February, one that would have been felt without any help from any disease anywhere, and without stimulus from the Congress, which would have been highly unlikely in any major way. We would have bumped through a softer recession, certainly not the banking crash version that we had before, but a solid recession that would have started and probably pounded us for about 2 years. And any situation where the Dems in the House would have passed something, the Republicans would have shot it down. Any recovery that we're having in this is only because the Democrats doubled what the Trump and the Republicans had asked for in an initial stimulus, doubled it, and it still isn't enough. Donald Trump is looking at 11 million people going back to work for the jobs they already had, many of which are dangerous during the time of COVID. And he is taking credit not just for them going back to work, but for their jobs existing at all. Oftentimes, I mean, he says extraordinary and ridiculous things and braggadocious things all the time. But that single thought shows a gap in understanding of reality that answers the question, how do you bankrupt a casino? That alone, that piece, gives you such an insight into this man's both need for acceptance and complete misunderstanding of any kind of baseline economics. I mean, think of he often does this thing with Hunter Biden and what Hunter Biden knew as the manager of among many at an investment group, or I think there are four main guys. He will often at his rallies point to a child and say, "What do you know about energy?" And the kid will shake their head. And he goes, "You know more about energy than Hunter Biden does." It's a laugh. It's a joke. He's been working that piece of material for a while now. And it's, it falls flat, but it qualifies to his reporters as a joke. You know what I mean? In the kind of in the open mic that we as a nation are paying for right now, as Donald Trump blasts across the country trying to patch holes in all the places that he won in 2016. And I have no doubt the same people that liked him will show up again, and the crowds were large then and they will be large now. They will not be filled with anybody who didn't vote for him last time, and that is his struggle. But that's the running gag that he uses. And meanwhile, in this joking, Hunter Biden doesn't know anything about energy, which I would say citation needed, and I would argue that anybody knows. We have to take a break, but what do you know? Extraction, processing, and delivery, transportation. Those are the primary areas. You got 3 stages in each of difficulty. What's your 3 main problems? What's your 3 pluses on each one? What's the easy part? What's the hard part? You do a 6-point chart on each of these segments. You, as an investment manager, make sure that when you invest your money, they're not using the things that are good to throw money at them, because they're misspending your investors' money if they put them towards things that are an easy part. They should just be able to fix that. The hard part, you recognize that they either have to have progress in that, or they are not spending your investors' money wisely. With that, 18-point chart across 3 sectors, there you go. Now, congratulations, you're an investment manager dealing with any major industry right away. I mean, you'll learn the rest as you go along, but you can whiteboard that in an afternoon. So anyways, we got to take a break. We'll come back right after this. The president is now saying that Joe Biden's dark vision of a horrible winter is because he is pessimist, which I think is a character in Festivus, but what he meant to say was he's pessimistic. And yet it is the president himself that, if he had simply said, we're finding the people who are infected and we are tracking and tracing that. If he just grasped that idea, articulated it well, he would remove 10% of the conversation about it, because he would remove 10% of the worry point that the president of the United States is a doofus. We'll be back. Good morning, chat room. Hi. I jumped right in, bum rushed in here. The cat ran in on me, and she doesn't normally talk. She was talkative this morning. Did you see the executive order? Civil service employees can be let go from their job. Yeah, they want to fire them before he leaves office. They're trying to purge a bunch of people. It's not surprising. What you deal with is Biden gets in, they get hired back, or they file a civil suit against the government, and what the government says is that was an executive order of the last president, and we as the administration don't follow that, and we're going to rescind it on day one, which they will. And unless they're just going to start firing people willy-nilly without cause. I found the tweet. Hold on. So, yeah.
We're coming back in 60, Hal.
Thanks. Looking. Oh, he's after Fauci, yeah.
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show, all local, all the time. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So the president tweeted, he voted this morning in person, which, by the way, if you'll recall, was one of my call-outs, I will just say, a couple of months ago, when he was continuing to say he votes by mail because he's in the White House and he lives in Florida, which he doesn't live in Florida. He has a residency allegedly at Mar-a-Lago now that he has never spent a night in. But I guess, I mean, at this point, why do we even care? Mike Pence is still voting from the governor's mansion of Indiana. That's right. Mike Pence is registered to vote in the governor's mansion in Indiana, not his actual house. I suppose as vice president, he would have an actual house in his home state. It's, I mean, crazy. When you become governor, are you so confident as governor that you'll get reelected that you sell your house and no longer have a place like that you pay rent on, considering you don't pay rent when you live in the governor's mansion? So he did. I guess he doesn't maintain his address. Anyways, Trump went in and he voted this morning in person, and he had said, "I vote by mail, and absentee voting is fine, but all this unsolicited mail-in voting is wrong and dangerous and fraud." And my question was, he goes, "I vote for mail. I always vote by mail. We always vote by mail." My question was, why? You have access to Air Force One. You're campaigning in Florida anyways. There's plenty of early voting time. Why don't you vote in person? They'll clear a lane for you. You're the president of the United States. You're going to, I mean, at what point do you have an issue at all? Do you think you're really going to have, and he even opined yesterday about standing in line, and I like voting. I actually like voting. So the actual part is the giveaway word in that sentence. When he says, I actually like that, it means I've never tried it. I've never done that. I'm rich, and I've never, well, on my father's money, and so I've never actually had to put up with the things you put up with. I actually like standing in line at Starbucks. That's basically what he's saying, which is ridiculous, and that's the kind of thing you say when you always have an assistant go get you your Starbucks. That would... I've met people like that. They're no fun. Anyways, so he apparently realized from, I don't know, some people bringing it up repeatedly and it cascading across the internet, that it's essentially ridiculous that he is that he was voting by mail when he's in Florida in the last few weeks of this election, running like mad to secure that state. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, whether or not he wins the election. And I think he's all in on Florida for a secondary reason to the election itself. He has 3 speeches there today. He did 2 he was there yesterday. He did 3. He's basically going to little places all over the state and staying at Mar-a-Lago. But he went in and voted this morning. And after voting, he tweeted, "The fake news is talking about cases. This includes many low-risk people. Media is doing everything possible to create fear prior to November 3rd. The cases are up because testing is way up. By far the most and best in the world. Mortality rate is down 85% plus. Let's deal with the primary lie in that, which is the number of cases are not up simply because testing is up. Now, when you start testing more, will you find more cases that exist, that are there? Sure. But it is the ratio of positive to negative that shows you the growth rate of the disease in the area. And this is something that the President of the United States fundamentally cannot understand. In the next segment, I'll talk about another thing he has a brain hitch about. He has several of these, but this is the one, there are several of these that endanger lives and the entirety of the economy because he doesn't get it. He can't, and I don't mean he's just, like, I think there was a video in Dave after Dave has replaced the president and he's changing all these programs. And one of the senators that's a real senator, I can't remember, I think it might have even been Leahy or somebody, who goes, I don't know what the guy's out to lunch. And he's talking about, because he's not actually the president, he's been replaced by a double. And the double is trying to do nice things. And he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. There's sort of a joking, the guy's out to lunch. He's nuts. There is a genuine brain hitch in this. In that, and this is very crucial when you are trying to stop the spread of a disease that is killing, has killed 225,000 citizens plus, by the way. We are undercounting. Make no mistake. 225,000 people are dead because of this. And you are heading into the winter and you want everybody to open up to the level where it broadens its spread over the spread already caused by, limited by lockdown and masking. You want to blow that off, move past that, which makes the number that we've seen this year double by next year. And I don't mean to 500,000, I mean to 750,000 dead by the spring. If you go from 15 cases to 225,000 dead with a borderline complete lockdown in April, slowly opening in May and dragging this out, and then it starts to spike up again and the death rate levels off and you kind of don't care. If you're operating with 7 million cases in the country, which, by the way, not all of those are active. Once you find them too, here's the great thing about finding a case when someone's mild symptomatic or asymptomatic. You have tested positive. Go home and don't talk to anybody for 2 weeks. And then guess what? You're not, in general, we can assume you're not going to be carrying it to other people. You'll continue to test negative, except for extraordinary cases, which no one can be expected to live within that kind of statistical bubble. You can go back out, and you know full well if you're asymptomatic or mild symptomatic. Here's the problem with the President of the United States' understanding of the expansion of testing and the concern of rise of cases is that as you test, if you have the disease under control, the number of positives goes down. Spread's being contained. Not that many people have it. Go into a place and you go, we test 100 people, 20 people come back positive. We need to tell everybody in the community to shelter in place, lock down until we can get it below 10%. So you do that, and it works. And it limits the spread of those 10 people that are spreading the disease around. As long as they stay in for a few weeks, they'll arc through the illness. But 2 or 3 of them decide to go out and say they feel fine because they don't really have any symptoms, or they watch something on the internet that says, I don't believe it, and they don't even realize, or they're the part that wasn't found that is in the positive group. They go out and give it to somebody else, and then you lose control of it again. And then the positive rate, which you had below 10, starts to arc up into the 20s. And again, of those 20, you're going to lose 2 to 4 of those people. And 6 of those people very well could clog up your emergency rooms. And if you have a bus crash and like in The Fugitive and a bunch of kids need medical attention, there's no ICU beds. There's no ventilators. There's no cardiac machines. There's no PPE for the people to interact with the people who have COVID and clean themselves up before they go interact with the people who don't have COVID who were in the bus accident. This show is raging by today because there are so many details. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the HalSparks radio program Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I stream it on all my sites, twitch.tv/HalSparks, Halsparks.live, Periscope, Facebook, my page on Facebook, and it will be, you can go do that, or you can just listen to us on the radio. Great way to help. Anyways, buy some stuff from the sponsors. That helps too. We'll be back. Trump's going to Lumberton, North Carolina, Columbus, Ohio, Waukesha, Wisconsin today. Yeah, he's in Lumberton right now, or he's on his way there. There's a hold on. Yeah, he's not there yet. Yeah, they're still not covering it, so I just kind of check in. Um,
Vote.com/PA. Return your ballot as soon as possible.
We now take you to Sleepy Joe.
In most of the red states. But that's not the point. Think of what he's saying about what's going on in America. He's saying, if you live in Pennsylvania, you're not his problem. If you live in a red state, Alabama, he may think about you.
He's talking to parked cars.
Because I always like yelling right when I'm really sleepy,
Yeah, I know. He often yells in his sleep. I don't know how Jill survives. Meanwhile, what do you think the odds are that if we went live to a section of Trump's speech, that after about 3 minutes he'd be like, I don't know. So you got to get out there. Yesterday he was complaining, what kind of life is this? About the did I not update my titles?
Back in 60 and you got 2 callers right now.
Excellent, thanks. Did I not update my titles? But I did. Oh, it's because that goes on live. Which one? That's why it didn't load. High school tested 102 temperature, sent back to class, back at school 2 days later, no COVID test. I can't get tested either. Gee. Yeah, they I got a letter that kid at my son's school tested positive, but they did not come in contact with any of the students, is what they were saying. So, and that's another conversation.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back to the show. So tonight, Sexy Liberal 5 is on. Go to sexyliberal.com for tickets. It is it's Stephanie Miller, John Fugelsang, Frangela, myself. We all have just thrown everything into it this week. We do this show, we've been touring as the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour, we did it in 2016 and the lead up. I'm just saying it was the biggest comedy tour of the year when we went out. But we decided I don't know which one of us was goading everyone else to do it. I have a hard time remembering who it was that was on everybody to go back out because we thought it was important. I don't know. He's a nice guy. I don't remember his name. Long hair, diminutive, good singing voice. Anyways, he pushed us all internally in some cases to go back out because the election's so important this time and really start motivating voters again. So we started doing some shows. And right after the Seattle show, we had to shut it down. And, we had the greatest comedy tour ever. And, look at the numbers. And we had to shut it down. And now we're opening it back up again. Well, we're doing it safely by doing it digitally. And you can go on your computer and watch a comedy show tomorrow night, the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour. And just go to sexyliberal.com. Tickets are obviously still available simply because you can't sell out the interwebs. There's always room. Yes, it does rhyme, Black Richie Rich in our chat room. It does rhyme with Pal Shark. It does, the person who was trying to get the rest of the Sexy Liberals to get back on the road again. Yes, the person who brought it up. So the show is tonight. We have a cocktail hour where you can hang out with us and mingle, where it randomly sets up this thing where you can talk to us, and it's like a big roulette wheel, and then suddenly we get to talk to each other for 5 minutes each, and you get to go through the crowd. It's really fun for us, and it's great interaction, and you can interact with the other people who are watching the show. It's kind of like, I was about to say chat roulette, but that has kind of a bad connotation. Everyone, no one tube in this one, okay? To all the Sexy Liberals, no tubining. And then after the show, we have the meet and grope that we normally have. We have it digitally, and then that one's sold out. But tomorrow I think there's still room in the hangover brunch, which is the extension we added because we sold out the meet and greet after the show. So tickets are $15 for the show, and then I think it's $35 if you want to do the meet and grope or the hangover brunch. And then it's live tonight. We'll be watching it. And to everybody who's already got tickets, thank you guys so much. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's pieces. We don't get to put our pieces together and watch them beforehand, So it's, some of the stuff we do interactive between all of us as a cast, we of course get to see that. But we don't get to watch the individual pieces that everybody's throwing in there. So I'm excited to show everybody my stuff. I'm excited to see what they put in. It's a good time. So tonight, sexyliberal.com. Get your tickets, vote with your money, support us so that we can wag how successful it is in their faces. There you go. That's a solid pitch. Okay, so today, Biden is in Pennsylvania. They know that there are 3 states that Donald Trump, for those of you that are Kornacki fans, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but there are 3 states that Donald Trump won last time and got all of the electoral votes from by winning by less than a percentage point. So not only was his win in those individual states nothing to crow about, it was basically evenly divided, which is something to be aware of when you're running on either side, is that oftentimes if you win by, there is a mistake in electoral politics, I think, for a lot of people, which is about largely rooted in celebrating the campaign and the people who got you there when you throw a party, that makes winning an election like winning a foot race. Like even if you win in the Olympics, if you win by a fraction of a second, you won. There's a huge drop off from gold to silver in that situation. And in an election, you still have to govern on behalf of the other group, whether you like it or not, especially if you want to keep your job, if you eventually want to grow past that, 50.8% or 47.3%. to 47.7%. Thank you, Drilithi. It's my periodic message thanking Hal for his service. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to I guess, speak in a way on a lot of these things that I just don't see the same perspective being expressed a lot of places. And that's, if you got something valuable to add, go out in public and talk about it, or, within reason. Wear a mask, wash your hands. Anyway, so point I'm trying to make is that when you win in a foot race, you won, you got the gold mantle, you got the trophy, it sits on your shelf, nobody argues with it. But in an election, when you win, what you win is a job, you get hired to do the job, warts and all. Now, this is not how Donald Trump views it, of course. This is not how he views anything in life. And the fact that he was a game show host for The Apprentice, he views as him being a television star instead of a game show host that had, percentage ratings lower than Match Game or, by his estimation, anybody who's hosted the either Family Feud or The Price is Right should be king of the world. But anyways, this idea that once you win, you just won and your side won, which would be true if you have a landslide victory. There's an argument that Reagan made, even though part of why he won as broad as he did was the great lie that he did something about, he was going to be able to do something about the Iran hostages that that Carter could not. We learned later, of course, that the way he did this is by selling arms to them. But it got him elected. It got him elected by a lot. Right? That's he won by a chunk. Big electoral vote advantage, a decent popular vote. There was a mandate there in a way that there was not under Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination. And even if Hillary had eked out a similar winning, there wouldn't be a mandate there. And that's largely due to people who either lazy non-voters or people who are frustrated with the process or don't believe because they live in a state that goes a certain way every time that their vote counts or won't count, which it does. And after the next break, I will give you my rant on why, if you live in a red state and you vote blue, or if you live in a blue state and you vote red, why your vote matters as much or more than the other votes. Why you actually have an edge in the value of your vote. Why it actually causes shifts in the body politic more than the steady votes. But in the meantime, Donald Trump is going around the country. He's got 3 rallies today. Biden's in Pennsylvania. And I'm going to play a small clip right now. And this Biden's live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. But this is the person that Donald Trump is running on, calling Sleepy Joe.
But remember what Donald Trump said when COVID-19 deaths reached 200,000 in America? He said, if you look at the blue states with Democratic governors and just look at the red states with Republican governors, we're doing well. Well, first of all, it's not true. The great rise has happened in most of the red states. But that's not the point. Think of what he's saying about what's going on in America. He's saying, if you live in Pennsylvania, you're not his problem. If you live in a red state, Alabama, he may think about you. He's not responsible for your family's well-being if you're in a blue state. Folks, I don't see the president that way. I don't see it that way. I don't see America that way. I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president for everybody.
Just for those of you listening at home, Joe Biden is not standing in an intersection giving a speech. They are doing these car rallies so people can sit in their car safely and go home and not die, so they can live long enough to not only vote, but enjoy the fruits of the party of their choice actually getting in office and doing some good things for their lives. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Vote early, vote. Go to vote.org or iwillvote.com. Find out, make sure your registration is locked. Find out where your polling place is. If if there's a method in your state for people to be able to track their ballots, you'll find out that on those sites as well, vote.org or iwillvote.com. Pick your poison. But vote. And when we come back, I'm going to explain to you why non-voters, your vote matters more in the election cycle than you think it does. We'll be back. As random audio clips go, guys, that was pretty dead on. I literally just, oh goodness, hi, thanks. As random audio bits, my girl snuck up and gave me coffee. She brought me a coffee because she thought I might need it. Or should we drink like the president? I just don't want to get any on my V-neck T-shirt. Taking calls in the second hour, Gonzo. I can't even hold it. Like when I'm holding it, I kind of evenly hold it because it's obvious that I'm doing it on purpose. He does this. This is the whole. He does this. This is the hold. This is the Trump. It's almost like he's giving it to someone else. Like, would you like a sip? Here, Grandma, take a sip of it. Nah, it's like, This is the position his hands were in when he was trying to give his dad a cup of water when he was dying in the end. And he went, nope, not until you sign the will. I wanted to vote at Madison Square Garden today.
Back in 60.
Thank you. Oh no.
Any complications in there? Not much. It was
Oh my God. All right, I have to show you guys this. Right. So in the chat room, hold on. Wait till we come back.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to HalSparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So the president of the United States is voting for probably the second time in his life. And I mean that honestly. Donald Trump is not a consistent voter, never has been. He votes with his PR, I suppose. He votes with his interviews. And today he voted in person in Florida, and he did it in a public library in the area, in the district that he's in. And he looks visibly confused by the books and the space that he's in. He's wearing a pink chiffon tie with stripes on it, not a blazing red for one. This is his voting tie, I suppose. Saturday, you dialed back the red, or you let Ivanka pick the tie or something like that. Anyways, here he is. I have not heard this, so be ready on the dump button. It is the president of the United States. He might say something that violates the FCC, but this is the president. He just voted.
No, not much. It was a very secure.
By the way, someone just asked him. Here, we'll do it from the top.
Any complications in there?
Any complications in there is what the person said.
No, not much. It was a very secure vote. Much more secure than when you send in a ballot, I can tell you that. Everything was perfect, very strict, right by the rules. When you send in your ballot, could never be like that. It could never be secure like that.
Wow. It could never be. So basically every military vote that we've had is, I mean, we have to just assume there was criminality involved. It could never be as secure as walking into a Florida library and voting. That's just an embarrassment.
They've done a fantastic job over here. Great people inside. So, but it's an honor to be voting. It's an honor to be in this great area, which I know so well.
Yeah, because you have a golf course there. You don't live there.
And we're going to make 3 stops today, big ones, big rallies, 3 big ones. Crowds have never been, I don't think there's ever been anything like this. There's tremendous spirit.
Yeah, wait till the spirit infusion that comes from being on a ventilator.
I hear we're doing very well in Florida, and we're doing very well, I hear, every place else. So thank you very much, and you're going to be very busy today because we're going to work you hard.
Mr. President, who did you vote for today?
I voted for a guy named Trump. Thank you very much, everybody.
So that was a round of applause that he got from Mark Meadows and a couple other people there when he said he voted for a guy named Trump. Now, I don't know how, and somebody might have to check on this, how Eric Trump got on the ballot indeed, but I thought that was a nice gesture on his dad's part. Yes, he's in a library in the district that Mar-a-Lago is in, where there's doing the vote and where they're doing the voting. So this in and of itself is a publicity stunt that the president has put forward. Now, understand that Florida has a lot of seniors. Many seniors, by the way, who vote by mail because they can't walk, or the district that they're in doesn't have enough voting machines. So for them to stand for hours in a line to vote, by the way, in the richest country in the world, is impossible. And therefore, and by the way, he wouldn't have done it either. Let's be abundantly clear. The only reason that Donald Trump is voting this time, and indeed last time, is because, if he did last time, if they didn't just make a show of it, this time I'm certain that he actually filled out a ballot. That the only reason why he's there is because they cleared a way for him. Security opened it up. He never stood in line. He walked right to the front of the line. This is, on a voting level, the exact same experience he had with COVID-19. Now, before I get too distracted on the fact that he's getting both getting government health care and getting pushed to the front of the line voting gives him an experience that most Americans don't have, and that while he's already had COVID and allegedly, and gotten treatment from Walter Reed for it allegedly, and come out the other side fine allegedly. I'm messing around, but I'm fairly certain he had it. I think he's a long hauler, but that's another conversation. I want to talk to the voters who don't normally vote, the people who are on the fence, and there are a tremendous number. Now, the Republican side of this, I'm speaking softly to you. I know some of you may be holding out. You vote regularly, but you can't bring yourself to vote for a Democrat, so you're just not going to vote for him. That I get that. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the habitual non-voters that believe in the majority of the things that they say they believe in that align with the Democratic platform, which if they would take a look at, I would advise everyone who is fuzzy about whether they're going to vote within the sound of my voice, and there are fewer of those people than there have been in a long time, but there are also in the undecided voters. I'm not talking about that, because those are people who are planning to vote, they just haven't made up their mind. I'm talking to the people who don't vote specifically for the reason that, well, my state always goes red and it really wouldn't make a difference, or my state always goes blue and it really wouldn't make a difference. I'm talking to both of you guys equally. You can hear my voice. Listen up. The standard voters are people who are engaged and involved, and they are a trackable group of people. And there's a little bit of give either way during the election that they speak to. But in the states where it goes blue solidly, but there are red people or whatever. But I'm really, honestly, to be completely frank, I'm talking to the blue voters in red states or in red districts. You not only is voting the primary right, beyond free speech, free association, and redress of grievances, and press, and religion, and protest. The primary right to vote is the principle on which all of the soldiers and spies and frontiers people and frontline healthcare workers have died protecting more than any other thing. They have died to protect your right to choose your leaders through a peaceful process, voting. Because ultimately, free speech and all those other things fall by the wayside if you can't pick who's in charge. If they can start picking if we had an appointed leader or a monarchy, then none of those things can be scuttled in a second. It is the ability of you to pick your leader is the primary right. So if you have any respect at all for those that have died so that the Constitution of this country would exist, and that things like the Civil Rights Act would occur over time in this country, if you have any respect for the Voting Rights Act or the Civil Rights Act or gay marriage or all the things that happen through a legislative push, if you want or you care about any of those things, then every 2 years you get off your duff and you go prove it. You prove that those things matter to you. Yelling on the internet is not enough. There's a certain level where you got to stop screaming and grab the wheel. And in this particular situation, when you're in a state that goes the other way, there's a laziness factor and a drawback factor that is statistically is such a high number that if all the people who don't vote because they think their state goes one way were sitting in an auditorium and didn't know it, they'd all been called, like they got free tickets to a show. You start handing out free tickets to shows to people who have expressed in the past, I'd vote, but my state's a red state, it won't matter. If you got all those people into an auditorium, or indeed several auditoriums, because it is in the millions, and you said, "Hi, welcome to this night of it's a celebration of voting," and they'd all go, "Ugh." You go, "You're chosen. You are in this audience tonight because you believe that your state leans one way and it won't go the other way." And we're here to tell you that everyone in this room votes the way would vote the way you would, and thinks the same thing. If now look around at the volume of people and tell me that the margin of 20,000 votes or whatever that didn't vote last time, or the 20,000 votes that whoever won last time, wouldn't be overwhelmed by the volume of people in this room, in this place. That if those, that's essentially what Trump is doing with his Florida rallies. He's trying to bring out the non-voter in Florida again, drive up that number. But the problem is you can only do that. Those people need personal service, because a lot of them are either egomaniacs, narcissists, fools, or have to be a sycophant of someone to actually be motivated to vote. On the blue side of the spectrum, a lot of people are just, have a twinge of faux aggressive, have a twinge of ooh, the Fed, or Wall Street, or the establishment phrase comes to mind a lot. And by sitting it out, they give their state to the other side and let them have at our laws and the protective structures that we have in our country. And that's how we get Amy Coney Barrett. That's how we get the scuttling of the payroll tax that will eventually destroy Social Security. That's how we get the destruction of the ACA and no plan to follow up. And ultimately, the destruction of our voting rights in general. There's enough of you out there who think, I don't vote because it really doesn't change anything. That if you did it every time, it would fundamentally change the structure of your state in a positive sense. It would raise the mandate of your party or lower the mandate of the other party. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Hi, everybody. There we go. All right, so that was Back to here. That hour blazed by. Gee whiz. Will you cover tomorrow's rally here in New Hampshire? Yes. Is it Trump or Biden? See. I live in Texas, which usually goes Republican. I still vote for Democrats, especially for local state. My vote counts. It matters. Not only does it count or matter, but if everybody who is like, I don't know, even just that twinge that goes with people going, it probably won't. If you just took that part away, if you just took that silly argument away that constantly gets hammered, excellent. But you have to wait. We're in break. We're in the commercial. Having a hard time, bought a bunch of bits, but can't figure out how to give it to you. Oh, thanks, Richard. The little diamond in your chat thing. Just click on that, and you can. A little thing will come up. I can't see it on my end because you can't cheer your own channel. It's how they avoid money laundering, I think. Where'd you get the glass for the iced coffee? I don't know where we got these. We've had these for a long time. These are Summers, so she's had these for a while. These predate me. I'll ask her. Chair is rolling over a cord, and it is one of those things that can be distracting. Done it 3 times now, and I'm take the cord itself, unplug it because it is not currently in use. And put it on the other side of the room so I don't roll over it. These are mainly all the same. Too busy. Yeah. Yeah, the kittens are doing good. Yeah, the vote. Richard McNeil, look at that. He did it. Hurrah! Well done, sir.
Back right here. Hey, you got a minute left.
Okay, excellent. Wait, who's that?
I'm training. This is Dylan.
Hi, Dylan. Hi, Dylan.
Hi, Dylan. Yeah, so,
I trust him to run the board now.
Wow, crazy. Well, nice to meet you. All right. I was like, that's
nice to meet you too, man.
Yeah. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for being here.
Hey, you need to tell him how mad you're gonna get if he messes up once.
Yeah, I rule with the iron fist. Unfortunately, I'm 7 states away, so it's not. By the time it reaches you, it's kind of a light. It almost feels like a hug. It doesn't really work. I need to.
Feel that, man. Hey, as long as you're not coming 7 states over to
no, that's
slam me or some craziness.
Yeah, no, that's some crazed astronaut behavior. You know what I mean? Where you. Anybody remembers that?
Line 2, Hal.
Okay, great. Yeah.
You're listening to the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn, puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Well, welcome back to the show, and I appreciate you guys for subscribing at twitch.tv/HalSparks to help support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you can do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's kind of a good thing. And I know that since Trump hates Bezos so much, it's kind of a double needle. that you could use his service to subscribe to my show for free is, yeah. You can also support us via Patreon, patreon.com/HalSparks. Thank you guys so much. And of course, Venmo, we have a little sticker on the show, but you can, in doing all that, you're helping us get gear, grow the show, and all that stuff. And we are now on the next round of camera hunt. We are building a new rig for the studio, and that's what you're going to help create. So anyways, real quick before we go to callers, story comes out yesterday. Texas member of the Boogaloo Boys, which, I mean, as a lover of the movie Break Into Electric Boogaloo, saddens me. They did this as a joke. I mean, Turbo and everybody involved, Kelly, to the entire cast, and of course Boogaloo Shrimp. I want to say I'm so sorry that your name has been sullied in this way. But the Boogaloo Boys have been charged with, by the way, these are a bunch of white psychopaths who are trying to start a new race war. They want a second go at the war, at the Civil War. So those South Will Rise Again stickers you saw that were cute and embarrassing, yeah, they now take on new meaning. Remember the Boogaloo Boys charged with, look at that, one's been arrested and charged with opening fire on, and you're like, what, crowd of people? Oh my God, protesters? No, Minneapolis police precinct during the protests over George Floyd. Feds say the Texas adherent of the far-right group fired on a precinct building, conspired with a cop killer to ignite civil war. In the wake of protests following the May 25th killing of George Floyd, a member of the Boogaloo Boys opened fire on the Minneapolis Police 3rd Precinct. You'll recall that that's the precinct that George Floyd died in, and has been the one where they've said we need to defund the police. Understand that in Minneapolis there are other precincts that the people of the 3rd Precinct don't have a problem with, and they want they think the whole 3rd Precinct is screwy and would rather have the county police go, take care of their district. That's where the whole movement came from in that area, but I digress. Opened fire on the Minneapolis Police 3rd Precinct. So understand, Boogaloo Boy, white supremacist, Trump voter, opens fire on a police precinct with an AK-47 style gun and screamed "Justice for Floyd" as he ran away, according to a federal complaint made public Friday. A sworn affidavit by the FBI underlying the complaint reveals new details about how far-right anti-government groups coordinate a role in the violence that roiled through civil unrest over Floyd's death while in police custody. Ivan Harrison Hunter, a 26-year-old from Berne, Texas, is charged with one count of interstate travel to incite a riot for his alleged role in the ramping up of violence during the protests in Minneapolis 27-28. According to charges, Hunter, wearing a skull mask and tactical gear, shot 13 rounds at the South Minneapolis Police Headquarters while people were inside. I guess attempted murder doesn't, as long as you're wearing a skull mask, it's fine. He also looted and helped set the building ablaze, according to the complaint, which was filed Monday under seal. So when Donald Trump talks about bragging that they sent in the National Guard into Minneapolis and it was over in a half an hour, that like a knife through butter, he likes to use. Talking about the Minneapolis specifically, the 3rd Precinct area, where the rioting had already started to ebb, largely because of Terrence Floyd, George Floyd's brother, saying, this is not what my brother would want, this is not what it's about, destroying places. And we find out, of course, that the protesters weren't the people looting and burning places. It was people like Ivan Hunter, a dude who drove in from Berne, Texas, to burn black-owned businesses and shoot at cops to try and ignite a civil war in his own little mini version of Helter Skelter. The FBI, of course, says that white supremacist groups and indeed racial supremacy groups, the third on that list is a black supremacy group, racial supremacy groups are the most dangerous domestic threat we face in this country. Of that 3rd group, the main one they're talking about is the Black Hebrew Israelites, the ones who were yelling at the Covington kids, who ended up shooting Jewish people in Brooklyn. These folks are a problem. Racial supremacy groups are not only dangerous, psychotic, and I would say fundamentally, ethically, and morally broken, but they are also antithetical to the entirety of the United States, to the baseline course of the country. Because, as I've said before, if you go on 23andMe or Ancestry.com and you check your ancestry, you might find France, you might find Nigeria, you might find China, you might find Japan, you might find Sweden, Finland, you might find Belgium, you might find the UK. You know what you won't find? America. You won't find American, because there is no genetic haplogroup for American. We are the America of, described, I think, aptly in Stripes by Bill Murray. We're mutts, and that's what makes us amazing, because we welcome people in who share the idea of democracy, the idea of rule of law, secular governance, having your religion but not imposing it on another person. That is, in effect, no dominant racial group at all. The purpose of it is not I mean, even if that was believed in the initial thought, that's not what the document itself speaks of, and not where it goes. Anyways, let's grab callers. We got time. Let me grab one caller before we get to the first break. Who do we have?
We have caller Steve from the Gold Coast.
Oh, right on, Steve. Thanks, Dylan. By the way, that's Dylan, everybody. He's joined us. Steve, are you there?
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
And I want to raise a couple of points that you've touched on. I have no doubt that Joe Biden is going to win this election with the following proviso, that we have a free and fair election. The problem being, I mean, obviously, we've got record numbers of people who are out there registered to vote. We're going to probably have a record turnout this year for obvious reasons. But again, this is contingent upon everyone's votes being counted. And some of this has little to do with Donald Trump. I mean, for people who don't know it, the nice individuals who are there at your polling place are volunteers. You know, most of them are older. A lot of them are in that, they're at-risk group in terms of COVID. Now, in case you've been asleep for the last 2 weeks, COVID is spiking in America. So the likelihood is that, heading into the election, the people who are most likely to be working at your local polling place are also the people who are most in danger should they contract COVID. So the question then becomes, are there going to be 20 polling places in city X, or are there going to be 2?
Right.
How many people are going to turn out? So then that translates into this question of, okay, maybe you were willing to wait in line an hour or 2 to vote, but are you going to be willing to wait in line 8, 10 hours if you're a single mother of 3? And you can't do it. So all of this plays a role in this. And then the question of, mail-in ballots, who's going to count them? Did the word go out to, challenge every signature, whatnot? All of these things are variables that, that no one can account for as of yet. And then, we get to this question about how, because as Americans, we live in a drive-through culture. We're used to having elections where, if I don't know by the next morning, who won the election, then there's got to be something going on, something underhanded. The reality is that this year you might not know who won by the next morning. And then of course, because there's this variation in terms of who tends to vote by mail, who's going to tend to vote by mail this year versus voting in person, you may see this swing where Donald Trump is ahead in XYZ states, and all of a sudden 2 days later, when we're counting the ballots, which are disproportionately mail-in ballots or disproportionately likely to be Democratic, you're going to see perhaps a shift, and all of a sudden people are going to be screaming, hell, oh my God, look, they stole the election.
Right. And that's what they're shooting for. That is the narrative. That is the narrative he's pushing. And the solution in this, obviously, a big portion of this is that the volume has to be larger than the number of votes they can scuttle without drawing attention.
Exactly. So even if you are in one of those states where you feel like it's a lock, get out there and vote. These margins have to be huge so that there's no doubt. And if we get a large enough margin, it means that you could possibly declare a winner that night.
Yeah.
Because there's no mathematical way. I mean, so for people who don't know it, again, nobody actually, when we declare states, nobody has counted 100% of the ballots when we call states that night. And
right.
when we get an election, what we do is we use algorithms and we say, given the number of votes that we've counted so far, and they're a cross section of the state, the likelihood that the other candidate comes back is almost impossible.
Right. There reaches a tipping point for those. Yeah. So Steve, for those that don't know, what the way they call those things is that they're counting votes all day from the second they come in, from the first votes that are cast in the morning, until the polls close. And usually right after the polls close, they don't usually tend to call states before then, just out of an abundance of caution. But they can get within an hour of something in a state that doesn't have a high population. A lot of the red states that are obvious, the Montanas of the world and Idaho, unless there's something really odd coming back, they're always leaning towards calling that state right away. That as soon as they feel, statistically it's going the way it normally goes, it's such a broad difference, 8 to 10 points, for example, that they just, they can pretty much put a pin in that one, and we'll have our people focus on what's going on in other states. And in particular, the floating swing states.
And we need to recognize that in 2016, one of the problems that nobody talks about, especially until after the election, was the degree of energy or lack thereof. So in other words, yes, you had Democrats who said, I'm willing to vote for Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately, we kept, being bombarded with stories. She can't lose, it's a lot, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out that 40,000 fewer people voted in Milwaukee in 2016 versus 2012. The margin of victory in the entire state of Wisconsin was less than 23,000 votes.
That's right.
So when you're not energized, when you think it's in the bag, guess what happens? You can lose an election. Donald Trump won in 2016 by a total of about 77,000 votes cast over 3 states, which is what you were referring to earlier. And so, it matters. And again, assuming that all the votes are counted, for people who don't know it, the more people that turn out to vote, the more it favors Democrats.
That's
Republicans want as few people as possible voting. So, I'm happy about the early voter turnout. One could have as many as 60 million people vote by the end of this weekend.
That's right.
And then, we still got about a week and a half left of voting prior to the actual date. And then, I think if it all goes as it should, a Biden win is almost certain. Again,
yes,
that's a big
there's a margin. Here's what I will say, that the early vote tallies, and everybody's very excited about the early vote tallies. And let me make abundantly clear. The early vote tally itself could simply be a factor of voting in a pandemic year. That the people who vote the most consistently, older people and people who care about this, who are also at the most risk of dying of complications from COVID, may have a tendency this time to not vote in person, but to vote by mail. Just, that there's enough of those people and enough of those voters in this country to make up for so when everybody's going, oh my God, the early vote last election was this, and the early vote this election is amazing. And okay, we're in a pandemic. There's a reason for that. And I don't want people to get too excited about the early vote showing up as far as volume. What matters is that the number overall is higher. If you start seeing, and you are in a couple states, and the youth vote is the only way of tracking that, because they didn't vote last time, or they, rarely did, that a much smaller percentage. So that's why they always court the youth vote, because that's the vote that comes out of the woods. We got to take a break. Went way over the break. And when we come back, more calls, 773-763-9278. Thanks so much, Steve. Appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. Indeed we will, I promise. Can we talk about Borat? Come back. Here we go.
You got 1 minute.
Okay, great. And then we still got who else do we have on the line? What are our callers
We have
on
5
deck?
callers on the line.
Oh, wow.
Roosevelt, Gonzo, Elena, I guess, Heather, and David.
Okay, we'll take them in order. Hang in there, Gonzo. We'll take them in order. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Who was that? Thanks for the subscription.
Now let's get back with HalSparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. We got a nearly full phone line, so let's get through it. Who do we have next, Dylan?
We have Roosevelt from Chicago.
Excellent. We love Roosevelt. Roosevelt, welcome. If it's the same Roosevelt, I don't want to assume. Good to see. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Hey, Hal, how you doing? Good morning.
I'm all right.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call. Hey, listen, I wanted to add on to what you said at the beginning. You reminded me of what he said during the debate.
Yeah.
We were talking about the fact that's exactly what I thought. He gives himself credit for creating 11 million jobs. Those are just jobs that were
on hold.
The workers came back to their jobs. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So let me add on to something else that you didn't cover.
Yeah.
And that is China. When he said that China is paying for the agribusiness, that's all bull. Because up to today, I believe in Forbes, this is last year, Forbes, 46 billion of our money, our tax money that's going to the agribusiness. And if China, here's the detail. Where's the detail? If China's paying the agribusiness, why would they pay? And why are they paying? In other words, they're just paying the people that we owe a lot of money to. They're just going to pay out of their kindness of their heart, China, same people.
I'll go one better. That's an excellent point. Let me stack on top of that, since it's a great point you brought up. Okay, so he brags it was $12 billion and $18 billion, and he stacked on top of that. Well, he keeps saying that over and over again as if that moment only happened once. They ultimately dumped about $68 billion on the farmers over the last year, and the last 2 years. And we subsidize some farmers just because we know that it's a cyclical thing and we need our food supply there. But a bunch of Trump's subsidies went to foreign owners of big agribusiness in the States, not American farmers, not keeping them stabilized. Foreign companies, specifically the twins in Brazil who own a big swath of stuff. Now the number you brought up is really good. So we dumped $68 billion on our farmers. We're paying them to make all this food. And Trump has bragged that because of phase 1 of his China deal, they're buying the biggest order of corn, the biggest order of soybeans, and the biggest order of beef ever, which we all know is from 4 months of not buying anything and buying all the stuff they need in 1 month. But he likes to pretend it's some giant order that will be consistent going forward, which is an absurdity because we can't produce that much for our own people and still sell it to China. It's just no country would starve their own people. It's weird. But on top of that, they made an agreement in the phase 1 deal to buy about $38 billion worth of agri-goods in the year. Now, that's how much, other countries buy from us as well. They are on track right now to buy about $16 billion of that. So in the middle of a pandemic where a bunch of, a huge swath of Americans have lost their jobs and farmers are being hit, China's just did the biggest order in ever, but they still are on track for the year to only buy half the amount of agricultural goods that they normally buy. Half. Now, you pay a tariff on something, you pay a percentage tariff. You don't pay the whole amount isn't a tariff. The government is not seizing the money paid to farmers for their goods and keeping it for the treasury. That's ridiculous. You would have to charge to make up for the gap. you would have to charge a 200% tariff on top of the goods to have the farmers paid and you to pay back what you've already paid to the farmers. It's ridiculous. We get as tariffs, he's like, we're taking in billions from China. No, the farmers that are still able to sell stuff are selling billions of dollars worth of goods to a country that has a billion people allegedly in it and that needs all this foodstuffs because they keep ruining their own food, their own agricultural situation. So we're taking 15% to 25%, depending on which crop you're talking about, according to Trump's tariffs. 25% of 13 billion is not enough to cover the tariffs. By anyone's math, even Trump's, I created jobs that already existed. Is Roosevelt still with us? I hope so. Is he still there, Roosevelt?
No, he's not still with us.
Okay, no problem. Okay, well, but I thank you, Roosevelt, for bringing that part of it up. So every time Trump says we're taking in billions from China in tariffs, and I took this money and I gave it to our farmers. In what world does 25% of 13 billion equal $68 billion? I mean, it is staggering the idiocy of what passes for math in the head of that individual. Let's go to our next caller. And then
it's Gonzo now.
Oh, right on. Well, it's Gonzo. We may have to hold him over during the break too. But hey, Gonzo, we got about 4 minutes for the break. Have at it. It's all you. There?
Hey, yeah, I'm probably gonna take a long time here.
Understood.
I got so many issues right now, and a lot of them are really personal. Like Trump can lie about the economy he inherited, and he could lie about all this other stuff because people can see the economy and they don't bother to research it, and they just listen to him and they think he's not lying.
Right.
But with this whole idea that the virus is coming around the corner or it's under control.
Right. We're rounding the bend. Right.
Right. Here's my personal part of it. My wife's a school teacher, elementary school teacher.
Yep.
This week, a young girl had a headache and she was sick. So they sent her down to the nurse. Okay, this is a girl in my wife's class. The nurse takes her temperature, it's 102, and sends the girl back to the class.
Oh, good grief.
For over 20 minutes. Yeah, sends her back to the class for over 20 minutes. The girl then is gone for the day. Okay, after that, I guess her parents picked her up. She's back in school 2 days later. And I'm saying, that no, you guys can't stand for that. And my wife she's not one to rock the boat. I'll rock the boat until it sinks.
Right.
But she's all cautious. Well, no, I'm sure she's fine. I was like, she didn't even get tested. There's no way she got tested. There's no way they're even following any procedure. So now my wife's walking around our house right now over the weekend with, and since then with a mask on, because
she's been exposed.
She can't even get tested herself because in our stupid little area of Pennsylvania, you have to have symptoms to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
that's a consistent issue, and that's something that when Trump talked about slowing down the testing, that's what he's talking about. That's one of the ways they materially put it in effect that they could actually do, that they could argue with the CDC that they have limited resources and therefore use the fact that they've actually shortened Trump is actually physically responsible for some of those limited resources when they had to throw out an entire shipment of swabs because he walked around without a mask in a sterile environment, in one of his early drops saying he's got it under control. But you're absolutely right. Continue. I want to make sure you keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus it's really getting bad in Pennsylvania. Like people act like, oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. I look over my neighbor's yard while I'm waiting to talk to you.
Yeah.
And there's like 10, 15 people, hanging out in their backyard. And I just want to, I just want to yell at them. I really do. I'm just so aggravated with the nonchalant idiocy that's going around in the United States, and this is why it's spiking again. Like in Pennsylvania, for the last 3 days, it's over 2,000 again, and we were in the 600 or 700, and we never really got down to a zero like he's trying to claim, or they're all going away. It's now 2,000 consistently for the last 3 days, and that's right. That's horrible. That's probably the worst we've been since this whole thing started. So now we're over 195,000 or whatever we're at. Texas just surpassed California in the number of cases this morning. He acts like he's got it under control.
Right. Well, he has to. Understand he has to. The illusion of the strong economy that he's, he inherited from Obama, and then once his plans go into effect, he doesn't realize there's a 2-year lag to the effect it has on most policies. That usually when the president of the United States does something drastic, unless it absolutely changes the law on day one, which rarely do things do, they have a lag period where they implement things. Usually has a 2-year point where you either start seeing the fruit of it or you start seeing the problems. And for example, he scuttled the cops program, which was supposed to broom out bad cops in local, that was put in place around Ferguson. And he broomed the pandemic response team 2 years ago. And both those, the excrement fired from those cannons hit the fan at the same time 2 years later.
Right.
Yeah. Let me take a break. Can you hold, Gonzo? Gonzo, hold on the line, because we'll go back to you after the break. I don't want to cut you off, and I want you to keep be able to finish that thought or whatever. But we got to take a break. So let's take a break, and we'll come back to Gonzo right after this. This is the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're on Saturdays 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, of course, 11 to 1 Central, and you can join us every week.
Think Theory Radio. I'm joined by radical ecologist Susanna Dunn.
We take for granted there is
Did I get enough sleep? No.
Of quote unquote.
Other than Gonzo, we have 2 callers.
Cool. Thank you. Perfect. I don't know how I'm functioning right now. It's kind of concerning to me how not tired I am. I was like, am I becoming manic? Is that what's going on? Am I going through manic phases? I'm not, because I'm not. I would imagine it would be a much more excitable state. But I'm like, although when I did fall asleep last night, I slept really hard, which is a good thing, because I slept maybe 3 hours 2 nights in a row. 3 hours a night before, 5 hours 2 nights ago. 3 hours 2 nights ago, 5 hours on Thursday into Friday, and then last night about 6. So I'm starting to even back out. Frustrated mess. Down, down, down. Down, 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 down. Yeah, obsessed could be it. It's also we're in the stretch. Thank you, Cassie. I'm trying.
Hey, Al, you got a minute left.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
knows. All I know is that for a little while, for at least 4 months, I can run in there and kiss every one of you, men and women.
Yes. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Woof. Trump losing causes civil war? No. It'll cause some of these boogaloo jerks to act out. It will not cause a full-blown civil war. No. The difference between the Civil War that happened in the 1800s and life now is that we have a much broader, more functioning rule of law.
I'm Dick Kay from Back on the Beat, and here is the mega worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
That's right. Dick Kay follows us on the air. We're still on the line with Gonzo. I wanted to let you finish your thought, my brother. Yeah, we were talking too about him believing that that testing causes cases, and that people coming back to work are jobs created, and then this weird idea that tariffs, 25% tariffs on $13 billion will make up for $68 billion that he's given to farmers of taxpayer money in a single year. Again, if you're spreading it out over 10 years and you got a 25% tariff to make it up because an extra 10% will eventually pay that off, make that argument. But that's not at all what he's saying. Not at all. That he's dumping money on farmers, not all of them American, and he's claiming that it is made up for by a tariff that is. There is no situation where there's no compound interest fantasy. There's no flip this house seminar you can go to that turns 25% of 10 or 13 into 68. Nowhere, not anywhere. Anyways, so continue. Yes.
All right, I still have a lot to say, Hal. I'm
Understood.
sorry.
That's okay.
We need a universal plan for school teachers.
Yep.
For how schools are supposed to be run, because I have some friends that are teachers in different school districts, and they have one or two cases and they're closed down. At my wife's school, one of the other elementary school districts in the area, the principal and his wife had a party at their house.
Good grief.
And they both caught COVID. There were 5 more cases after that. And his wife is a school teacher at the local high school. So they had to shut all the schools down for just a week, or like 3 days really. And they disinfected it. That was their solution to this whole thing.
Right.
Now, to piggyback on your other thing with the farmers, that's one of the largest bailouts we've ever given anybody. It's 3 times larger than the bailout to the auto workers, and the auto workers paid their bailout back with interest.
Right.
These farmers aren't going to be able to pay this back, and we still have record bankruptcies and closures of farms.
Because it's not about individual farmers. It's about big agribusiness. This is just a payout to get those guys to fund his campaign. And it didn't work because a lot of them are like, no, this isn't going to work long term. We've got all of us plan to still live in our homes in 10 years, not in 2. We don't flip buildings for a living to Russian oligarchs. So you can't just dump a bunch of money that we have to pay out to make up a shortfall and then expect this not to come due in 5 years.
Right. And our number one export for those farmers is China.
Yeah.
You think we're going to have any kind of deal with China if Trump gets elected? They've already gone to Brazil. They've paid Brazil billions of dollars to terraform their country to help them grow products that China's going to need in the
and they're turning huge sections of they're turning huge sections of Africa basically in outsourced farming for the Chinese people. That's most of their movement into Africa can be based on, normal resource push where they go in, hey, we're friends of yours. We just need a little bit of the oil, which turns into a lot of the oil over time, depending on how well they can control the people who are in charge, and using the farmland, basically buying at a lower clip from those farmers. The way, quite frankly, we buy avocados from Mexico, we do that with farms that the Mexicans created themselves. What China's doing is going into areas where there is no farming, or they know the land is ripe for it, and setting the farms up themselves, basically as these satellite parts of their own nation. And it's really scary. And the people in Africa and those regions are being exploited on a level not seen since the 1600s, and it's really off-putting. And I don't think anybody even is paying attention to it. Most people don't pay attention to the continent of Africa, anyways. But especially in this circumstance.
No, it's just like any other place. The poor people are used for the wealthiest people to take advantage over.
Mm-hmm.
The one last thing I want to tell you is when people tell me about Trump's economy and stuff, here's what I say. I say, listen, the stock market did good for the first year after Obama. It went up about 6,500 points. It hit almost 2,700 in January of that year, 26.5, maybe something like that. In the next 3 years, it's only 1,800 points higher in 3 years. So that's an average of 600 points a year. So under Trump, like you were saying earlier, how the economy takes a little bit of time to actually reflect the current president of the United States. Well, look at how he brags about the stock market, which is probably the only thing that's even close to being in the positive for him. And it's really not even doing as great as he thinks.
Well, and
at least under him.
I will bring up a point that you brought up in our chat room. I want to bring up a point that you brought up and reminded everybody in the chat room that the president had the Fed lower interest rates 3 times last year. We have the lowest interest rate in history in the Fed. And what happens when investors, there's a certain amount of money that when interest rates are normal, you can set some of it in more stable growth areas. But what they found is that when you lower the interest rate that much, it's almost worthless. Your money is just sitting idle. So what happens is hugely rich people put their money in the stock market when that happens. When the banks who lend money can make more money because the interest rates are slightly higher, then people take their money, the banks themselves, by putting that money out, people tend to invest in those financial institutions. When they can't, they put it in the stock market. So the banks have an interest in the stock market going down, and the stock market has an interest in the interest rates going down. And so there's always this tug and pull between the two of them. And the president, because nobody understands the value of interest rates, and only people who borrow on massive scales or can afford to buy a house deal with this. But everybody can see the stock market as a number. So he's put all of his chips in on that one. And 6 stocks have accounted for all the growth in the stock market since Trump's been in office. 6. And which means that a bunch of people said he's going to lower interest rates, he's going to stomp the Fed like he said, and so let's put all our money in the stock market because it's going to go up for a period. And that's that first 6,500 bump that you started to see actively. And then ever since then, the people are looking at the fundamentals of these companies and they realize they're overvalued. And so they're pulling, all they're doing is playing the dummy game. Is there somebody dumber than me that's willing to pay more for this stock than I am? That's the game that's happening in the stock market right now. It's beyond the value of the companies that are actually there. I mean, look at the Tesla stock. Get out of here. You think Tesla is profitable on that level? That it's twice what Apple's was, or 3 times what Apple's was, and Apple's the first $1 trillion company? It's all what the Chinese people call feng pi. Feng pi, fart air. It smells like there's something of substance, but there isn't. So real quick, we got 2 minutes before the break, and I want to let you finish your thought on that.
Yes, you kind of stole my thunder on that.
I'm sorry, but I gave you thunder on the other thing that you brought up. I've tied them together. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add a little lightning to that, there was a fourth lower of the interest rates in middle of March of this year.
That's right.
And so really in 12 months, the Fed have lowered the interest rates 4 times on this booming economy. And that proves right there that it's not a booming economy.
No, he's priming the pump.
Right. Now the problem is that we're in such a horrible recession because of his horrible response, world's worst response on the pandemic, is that the Fed doesn't have anywhere to go. We're at 0 to 0.25 right now. We have nowhere to drop the interest rate to help boost the economy to get out of this recession. Whoever gets elected, which will probably be Biden, he's going to have such a hard time trying to to climb out of this hole that Trump has buried it.
Look at how they talk at the exactly. Look at how they talk about the Obama administration the first 3 years. The Obama administration was in charge when there were more people added to food stamps than ever. And never mind the fact that they were all added to food stamps in the first year because of the crash caused by the previous administration. Like that, and that they were responsible for getting those people on food stamps when they needed them and getting them off food stamps over time, which is what you do in an emergency. It's like saying that the Obama administration provided over the biggest handout of life preservers in any boat sink in history. Like it's an odd fixation that they have. We got to take a break. Thanks for calling in, Gonzo. Love you. Thanks for being a valuable member of the chat and for calling in as well. I salute you. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We'll be back right after this break. A couple more callers. And then, of course, we do have a happy ending in spite of all of it. 10 days to the election. 10 days, people. Do you have a plan to vote? Do you have a plan to get somebody else to vote? Have them join you for the vote. We'll be back. There you go. Already voted? Yeah, who in the chat room already voted? FDR administration is going to be a good guidebook for the Biden administration. I would say, Edward, that the Obama administration will be a good guidebook for the Biden administration. Look at that, you guys. I'm a judge. Did you see the Erie, Pennsylvania rally? Hold on 1 second. Trump literally said he wouldn't have visited PA at all if he wasn't losing. Yeah. I mean, the whole point of, like, what kind of life is this? Like, the fact that he said that he just hates.
Jay Farner here, CEO of Rocket Mortgage. Making the right financial decisions
now I'm doing
has
ads.
never been more important.
Can you
When
kill that
turn
on
to Rocket
coming to me?
Mortgage,
I'm hearing
we
the
can
ad.
help guide you to those right decisions now when they
Chicago.
matter most. Mortgage rates are near
Chicago.
historic lows, so
Hearing the
now
ad.
is a great time to call 8338-ROCKET. And if you need some
I can't
extra
do that.
money,
I
a
can't
cash
have
out
ads
refinance
that
can
aren't
get
mine
you that
running on
financial
Twitch.
boost
I'll
you're
get in
looking
trouble.
for.
Please stop. Yeah, thank you. There you go. Apparently that's a big no-no, which I wasn't aware of until somebody warned me about it, and then I saw some of the ramifications therein.
I got you got a minute and 2 callers left.
Excellent. Where voters hang out, totally. Well, because we take it seriously.
Welcome back to the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
That's right. Yay! We've got 2 more calls, and then I will present an actual happy ending. Who do we have first? Dylan, who's there?
We have Heather from Texas.
Excellent. Heather from Texas, which will go blue, by God. If everybody if every blue voter in Texas voted, it would be a blue state. Period. End of story.
Yes.
Yep, but go ahead.
Yes.
Welcome.
I'm sorry, I haven't. Thank you. You don't know this, but you know me because you've answered some questions on our mutual friends podcast for me. But
oh, gotcha.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have so much to say right now that I can't even think. Okay.
Understood.
So the irony here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have a favor to ask of you and a question at the end.
Okay.
First of all, I grew up in Delaware. the irony is I am living in Texas because of the fact that I was, and I'm going to do it personal here because I don't give a shit anymore.
Oh, easy. Hold on. We got it. You have to wait till the dump happens. Sorry, guys in Chicago, you can't swear on the air because we're on real radio.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's if people get into podcasting habits, it happens. No worries.
When someone swears, we gotta drop them. That's the rule.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Call back then next week, please. I'm sorry we have to drop you. If you swear on the air, they can't. Apparently, Chicago can't keep you on at all. I'm sorry. Feel free to join me on the regular stream in the chat room, and we'll relay everything you were going to say. Let's grab our last caller, and then I'll do the happy ending.
Hey, it's David from Miami.
Excellent. Hey, David. Are you there? Do we hear you? We're still
from Burglar.
Oh, sorry. Okay, say that again, because
So greetings, time changer. Are you Trump as Bobcat from the movie Burglar?
Right. Hey, ladies. What are you doing? You're not driving young guys wild. Right, that guy. Right. Have you seen the keys to my BMW laying around here? Right. So please go ahead, or I will do that the whole time. Go ahead.
I look forward to it. That's why I made sure to type this out. I wish I was teaching social studies like Ben Stein in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I wish I was teaching history like Sam Kinison in Back to School. And I doubt Trump has seen either guilty pleasure.
Right.
My question is, will the Kushners take off their masks to reveal they're really Michael T. Weiss and Andrea Parker from The Pretender, that they're just part of a 4-year deep cover scam to expose not just Trump, but all of his puppet masters?
Right.
Because nothing else makes sense. All the Sudan, UAE stuff, what is going on?
Oh, it's an arms deal. So here's what's happening. It's really simple. One of the reasons why previous administrations have not had deals like this is because what they entail is us giving F-35s, missiles, tanks, countermeasures for boats, for ships that to put in the waterways, basically giant, massive weapons of war to countries that have, up until yesterday afternoon, wanted Israel wiped off the map, and who very well, in a single turn in a day, could decide they want to do it again. And so our, cooler heads have prevailed. Like, yeah, we could pay these people not to bomb Israel, but that's nuts. That's a protection racket. And we could we could sell them F-35s and the like, but how long is it until those weapons are used on our own soldiers, end up in the hands of the Iranians and their allies, or end up striking Israel? So that's a non-starter. What the Trump administration has done through Jared Kushner is, we're selling them weapons. The reasons. Right. Well, no, they can. Once we sell you that stuff, we train you on how to use it. Understand this: when the United States or any other major country sells military gear to stuff, there's a program that goes along with it that trains your people on how to use it. So we want you to buy more of that stuff. So we don't want you blowing up your own people by putting the shell in the cannon the wrong direction and killing yourself. So we send over training people to do that long term. So we're going to be training their pilots in the use of the F-35 for the next 5 years. And in 5 years, if Donald Trump won another term and stuck around in there, and then he loses and things start to shift and people start dealing with Israel in a more balanced essence, and these guys who make their entire living off of oil and war decide, well, this peace sucks. So how about the Sudan, UAE, Bahrain, and any of the other countries in it? We all have the same weapons, right? Cool. Let's do a coordinated strike on Israel. They're done. That's why previous administrations haven't done this deal before, because it's nuts. It makes no sense. Well, hopefully, hopefully not. Hopefully they don't do that. The only upside to this is the part where it has nothing to do with Middle East peace anymore, because the oil countries down there are running out of money. The world is awash in oil. It doesn't have the value it used to, and these countries are eventually going to have to interact with the rest of the countries in the world from a non-resource-based economy, which will fundamentally shift not only the. Yeah, once oil is worthless, then they have to act like a country that sells beer and goods and rugs and dates and whatever their local wares are, like every other, Belgian waffles, whatever your country comes up with that's unique to the world. You got to start interacting with the rest of the world in a, we can't all be soup Nazis. You can't say, well, you want my soup, so I can treat you however I want you. I want to because I can't, I'll always get away with it. Once that shifts, once we get away from the oil economy, worldwide peace gets a lot more normal because a lot of the wars that have been fought over time are either land for farming or resource-based. And over the last, since mid-century, last century, it's really been about where's the fuel of the new economy going to come from? Now that's dying. Now you can create your own.
100 Years' War.
Yeah. Yeah, that's precisely it. You want to feed your people? You want your people to be able to be ahead of the economy and not end up being the slave ship for the other countries? You got to be the first ones to the well. And the Saudis were the first ones to the well. And Texans were the first ones to the well. And that's what we've all been fighting about. You get out of oil, you phase out fossil fuels, the wars themselves fade away because the resource is unnecessary. And then it'll be about production. You have wars based on production. There's no reason to blow up your country if you're the factory. There's a reason to blow up your country if it's just sitting on top of the stuff they want. That's it. So I appreciate the call. Thanks very much. That the understand this. The Sudan, Bahrain, UAE deals are arms sales with a temporary ceasefire, basically around them as far as recognizing they're not recognizing Israel as a country in any of these formal agreements. They do not recognize Israel. They are normalizing diplomatic relations, which means I don't think you deserve to exist, but while the cop's standing there, I'll stop punching you. That's what it is. And as soon as the cop goes away, the cop just handed me his gun and his nightstick. Trust me. That's what these are. That's why no other administration has made them, because they aren't insane. Because they aren't run by a power-hungry would-be tyrant and his odd android son-in-law. These deals are ridiculous. And the more countries that come on board and you see the price tag of what it means to have these countries get the weapons they're getting and what that could mean. We've struck the Iran deal to stop Iran from getting a nuclear agreement, and Trump is saying, that deal's almost over, even though it's got 6 more years on it. That deal's almost over. Well, I got news for you. There is no time frame on Bahrain and all these places, not firing on Israel. The day after the weapons arrive, they can go, you know what? Rip. You tore up the deal with Iran. Why should I honor this one? And now we've got leverage over Israel. 6 of these countries will now have the highest quality U.S. weapons trained by American pilots, trained by the American military, and Israel's on the receiving end. You wonder why Netanyahu didn't take a swipe at Biden when Trump asked him to. I ran out of time for my happy ending. Here's my happy ending. On Biden's website, joebiden.com/reopening, real easy, joebiden.com/reopening. He has a 5-part plan to jumpstart the economy and reopen it. It's what the White House has been cribbing from since he put the bare bones of it out in May. Go take a look at it. See you guys next week. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Devin. Stick around for Dick K. I think I've got a couple of seconds left. There we go. Stick around for Dick K. He'll be on right after.
Say thank you to Hal.
Hey, thank you, Hal, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. You guys did great. It was nice. And we'll look forward to talking to you in the future and one day after the current unpleasantness, meeting you in person. Cheers.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, we'll see you next week. Okay, thanks, guys. Yeah, they dumped me really quick. So they're training Dylan to run the board, it seems, and Dick K rolls in there right after my show. He just kind of stands out there until my show's over before bursting into the studio and setting his stuff down. And they got about 5 minutes to put the stuff in. Yeah, I got to go take a nap. Totally. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, and Can't Stop Lying, I've given you far too much stuff. You're cutting far too much stuff. So this one, I think we can just do the quarter-hour segments to the breaks. Don't worry about little clips. That'll be easier, I think. A little inside baseball. Just make it easier on yourself. Jesus. Tonight, Sexy Liberal. So I'll avoid the. I mean, I really do want to stream all these rallies. Jesus, it's just too much comedy gold. It's driving me crazy. Yeah. Oh, Dylan dumped you? Probably because he's like, Gonzo's not a real name. We got a Muppet calling in. The kittens are good. Kentucky Wildcats do indeed rule. Thanks. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm going to, yeah, I saw that Jerry Jeff Walker passed. So rest in peace to him and love to his family and his fans. One rally a day is plenty since he's spewing out the same BS. I agree, but he makes new flubs in each one, and those are the parts that are so much fun. Like, it's worth sifting through all that crap just to, maybe I'll just make notes. I wish there was a way, like on C-SPAN, you can go through and you can make clips. That's what Aaron Rupar does most of the time. He's on C-SPAN for these things, and he just goes through, and C-SPAN, because it's owned by the public, can allow you to make clips. I had no idea you were so smart. Well, it sneaks up on you. So yeah. Made this election possible. Thanksgiving. Oh, thanks, Leslie. I'm trying. Yeah, well, I try to make it palatable, and we just, jump on in there. I mean, the flubs are gorgeous, and they're getting worse. So they're, it's difficult for me to pass them up. And not everybody catches them. That's the part that drives me crazy. Even, the people who regularly live stream his stuff, like Aaron does all the speeches, he just pulls clips and does them, and he's getting overwhelmed too. You're hold on. I got asked to do push-ups, whatever. And you're gonna have to take it as understood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. I won't make everybody wait for the rest of them. And proof, my face is slightly red, so you can tell that I actually did them and didn't just go on the ground and count. Now I get to go take a nap. Thanks. Yeah, it's good. I am not counting while lying down. You guys know me better than that. All right, I'm going to sign off and go rest because we got Sexy Liberal tonight. I look forward to seeing those of you that are there, and those of you that didn't get the meet and greet tonight or tomorrow, I will see you in the cocktail hour that they do before that because they'll rotate me through. And yeah, so I don't know if I'll be able to sleep though. I think I just need to rest, but whatever. That did make my hair kind of floppy. I'm a spirit animal. I try. All right, I will see you guys later. Oh, this is 10 days, people. 10 days. It's gonna be nuts. Shit, I didn't even get to talk about Borat. We'll do that tomorrow. How about this? Tomorrow I'll do a rally, and before that we'll talk about the Borat thing. Because there's a bunch of stuff in there, even beyond the Rudy Giuliani thing, which is totally gross. In any normal universe, the way he pats her on her waist as she's getting his mic out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. That's what we'll do. It gives everybody time to watch it if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah. Tomorrow, I'll do the regular time, 3 o'clock. I think that'll, save it because I've got the morning brunch thing. God. All right, I'm signing off. Love you guys. Have a beautiful Saturday. I'll see some of you at Sexy Liberal tonight. All right, cheers. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Get a plan to vote. Vote.org. IWillVote.com.
Free health care for illegal. Look. Euromisia. To me, Corona means Italy.
First Lady's doing great, and I would say fully recovered or just about fully recovered. But we are fully recovered, and I am.
Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
I had a beat off.
They're not allowed to be offensive, unfortunately.
I had a beat off.
That's better than a brick because you can't throw a brick, it's too heavy.
Captain's log.
Michigan gave us Motown. Gave us Motown, gave us the Mustang.
Person, woman, man.
Yosemite. Wildlife refuges. I mean, you look at this, you look at what we do with our wildlife. Bags of soup. Michigan gave us Motown. Michigan gave us Motown. We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen. We have that. It's as wide as it can be.
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
We have that. It's as wide as it can be. They're not allowed to be offensive, unfortunately.
Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
I don't read, obviously. Company that his son worked for, that's Extremist. For Iowa values, for Iowa values, for Iowa values. Euromisia, for Iowa values, for Iowa values.